In this lesson, we will learn how to leverage ChatGPT to perform code generation and design. So let's start with a basic example. Let's assume that I would like to define a Python function that is going to add two variables together. So basically, all I'm going to say, please define a Python function that can add up two variables. And then I'm going to say, I would like to call that function and send it the following arguments. These are going to be 10 and 5. And if you press enter, basically what you see here is a pretty powerful code along with the explanation to that code as well. Basically, it's telling you that here's an example Python function, def add x and y, and then the function going to return x plus y. And then here, basically, ChatGPT understood that I would like to send that function or call that function and send it arguments, these are 10 and 5. And then here you basically just perform the function call. So you call the function with its name, you send it these arguments, and then you obtain the results at the end. And it's also explaining to you that this will output 15, which is the result of adding 10 and 5. Pretty good. And another point as well is basically what's happening behind the scenes for ChatGPT. It's not simply memorization. It doesn't just memorize that adding a function or defining a function that add two numbers. It's just going to be add x and y. Basically, here I'm specifying specific arguments to send it to the function. So now understand that these arguments need to be specified here in the function call. And also it understood that I would like to add them together as well. So it performed the math operations behind the scenes and generated the output, which is 15. Okay. All right. So what I could do as well is I can also ask ChatGPT to define a Python function that can add up two variables together. And I would like to also test that function using the numbers 10 and 5. But what I'd like to do right now is I would like to achieve basically the same results using the shortest lines of code. So here, this is the only addition that I added here compared to the previous prompt. So if you press enter, here we go. He's going to tell you this is a simple function, which is basically called add numbers. And basically, you can just call that function and send it 10 and 5. What you notice is that basically this code is pretty much the same as the previous code. So I'm going to say, well, I don't like that answer. For example, I don't like this answer. Any other suggestions? Let's see. He's telling you, well, sure. What you could do as well is you can leverage lambda functions instead. And if you are aware, lambda functions, these are simply anonymous functions. They don't have a name, and it's just so efficient. Especially for very simple operations such as addition, you can just write the entire function in just one line of code. So you can also see the function call as well. So here you call the function, which is add numbers, you send it 10 and 5, and then you get the results. And basically you can just do that in a single line of code, which is pretty good. Okay. Next, I would like to, for example, expand on that code so I can get the two numbers from the user instead of just using predefined variables or values that are 10 and 5. Well, I can just say, please expand on this code so I can get two numbers from the user instead of using 10 and 5. And here we go, certainly. And here, what you notice is basically ChatGPT has developed a code for you that can show you here that we are asking the user to enter two numbers. So here I'm asking the user to enter the first number. And here you'll notice that we are doing type casting to cast the input, which is going to be in a string data type, to a float data type or floating point. And that's going to be num1 and num2. And here we're calling the function with num1 and num2 and also printing out the results, which is pretty amazing. Okay, well, what I'm going to do next is I would like to maybe generate a Python function to find the largest number in an array. So if you say, let's go ahead, generate the Python function for us, and here we go, you will find that basically here the function, we call it basically find largest number. And here you're just checking and looping through the array to find the maximum number in the array, which is pretty powerful. Well, what I would like to do next is I would like to basically test the ChatGPT capabilities in maybe a different programming language. For example, maybe I would like to see if it knows MATLAB. So I'm going to say, well, can you convert this code for me, from Python to MATLAB? And here we go. It's going to tell you, well, you can certainly do this. And this is the code, basically using M scripts in MATLAB. And of course, you can copy the code here. And it's actually pretty reasonable. And it's telling you that you can simply use that code to obtain the largest number in an array. And here's an example as well to test that function and simply obtain the maximum number, which is 9. And it's also showing you the explanation as well to that code, which is pretty amazing. Okay, what you could also do is that you can use ChatGPT to, let's say, generate specific numbers, for example, in a pandas data frame table. So what I could do is I can say, could you please write a Python function for me that defines a pandas data frame table for 10 bank customers. And here I'm specifying the headers as well for the table. So I'm going to say I need a name, age, net worth, and credit card balance. So if you press enter, here we go, it's going to tell you certainly. And here define a function, they call it create customer data frame. And it's also generating names as well for the customers. So again, pretty incredible. You can see, specify that here, I specified only 10 customers. So these are the names, John, Jane, Bob, Alice. You can also see the ages as well associated with them. You can also see the net worth too. And you can also see the credit card balance as well, okay? And here it's basically showing you the function call, so how to call that function, and showing you the output as well that is coming out from calling that function. Okay, what if I would like maybe to write a program in Python to count the number of vowels in a given string? Well, I can go ahead and do that. And please note that up until this moment, I'm just testing ChatGPT capability to write Python code and also MATLAB or M scripts. And then next, I'm going to show you basically if it knows Swift, maybe C++ and JavaScript as well. So here we go. It's going to tell you, well, sure, certainly. So it's basically define a function. They call it count vowels here. And it looks like it's basically looking over the string, counting the number of vowels. And here, this is the function called, and showing you as well an example, and showing you the number is going to be 3 here, which is the number of vowels in hello world. Again, really powerful. Okay, let's go ahead and test ChatGPT capability in writing Swift code. So I'm going to say, generate a Swift program to maybe find the factorial of a given number. So let's go ahead and test it out. And here we go. So here, this is simply the function that is going to obtain the factorial for you. And it looks like it worked. And it's also explaining to you the code. And here it's telling you as well, when you test that basically code, the factorial of 5 is 120. And it's showing you that the factorial of 5 is simply 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, which is again pretty accurate. Well, what if I would like maybe to generate a C++ program to implement a binary search algorithm? I can say that, so I can say generate the C++ program to do this. So basically you press enter, here you go. This is again another completely different programming language. So this is the C basically code. And it's simply showing you the entire code. And of course you can go ahead and copy that code if you like. And it's explaining to you basically how binary search works and how this function works in general. And then finally, I would like to test ChatGPT capability to generate a JavaScript function to maybe remove all duplicates from a given array. So let's go ahead and test it out. So we're going to say generate the JavaScript for me to remove all duplicates from a given array. Here we go. This is the name of the function, remove duplicates. And here it's simply just checking out if we have duplicates in that array, testing it out as well, and showing you an explanation as well to the code. Again, this is pretty incredible. Basically, what we have done is we tested ChatGPT capability to write Swift code, C++, Python, JavaScript, and also generate random values as well in a pandas data frame. We'll kind of generate tables for you. In this lesson, we will learn how to leverage ChatGPT to perform code debugging. This lesson is one of my favorites because it's going to truly show you how useful that technology is and how powerful it is as well. You can basically use it to discover what's wrong with your code. You can also use it to fix your code as well for you. So let me show you an example. Let's assume that we have a Python function that adds two numbers together. It's a pretty simple one. And basically, what I'm going to say here, I'm going to say what is wrong with this Python function in one sentence. So basically, if you are familiar with Python, you would notice that here I don't have a colon. This is a colon here missing in the definition of that. And that's why you are basically seeing here an error message. So if you press enter, here we go. Basically, I tell you, well, the function is missing a call to the function header. So you can basically just simply say, can you fix this function for me? And here we go. Pretty incredible. So I'm going to tell you, well, here's the correct function. So simply here, it added the colon at the end. And also you will notice that there is an indentation here or white space that has been added as well. And that's simply a proper function. You can just go ahead, copy that code, and you can simply use it in your code. Okay, next. What if I, for example, was running a code in a Jupyter notebook and maybe I got an error message? So for example, here, all I could do is I can say, well, I got this error message. Let me remove the number here. So I got this error message when I ran my Python code, and this is simply the error message I got, for example. And I just want to know what's wrong with it. So if you press enter, it's going to tell you, well, this error message indicates that there's a syntax error. And basically the reason is because my sum at the end is missing a colon at the end. That's part of the definition of that function. And he's also showed you the fix to that function as well. And it's going to tell you, make sure to include a colon after the function parameters and to indent the code as well inside the function body. Pretty amazing. Okay. All right. So what if you maybe obtain another error, for example, that is related to the previous function? For example, let's assume that you tried to call the function, which is my sum function. But here, what you did is that instead of sending two arguments, basically this function is expecting x and y, here you just say, call my sum, which is that function, which is my sum here, and you just sent it one argument only, which is just 10. And simply, if you do that, you will get this error message. And let's go ahead and test it out. Basically, I'm saying, what is wrong with that Python code? And here, I'm just copying the exact same code that I got when I ran or tried to run this line of code. Here we go. It's going to tell you whether the error message here suggests that my sum function was called with one only argument instead of the expected two arguments. And here's an example of how to fix that code. He's going to tell you, well, to call that function, you need to send it actually two arguments. These are going to be 10 and 20. And what you notice here is that ChatGPT actually used one of the numbers that we already included as part of our error message. It's actually pretty smart. So I'm going to say 10 here. And then it basically added an additional parameter, which is 20. And it's going to tell you, make sure to provide both x and y arguments to the MySum function when you call it. Okay, pretty incredible because, again, first, the expectation is on point. It's described in plain English with examples along with the correct code as well. Okay, so the next question is, let's assume that I would like to ask ChatGPT, okay, which is, why is my loop not executing as many times as expected? So, well, here we go. There could be several reasons why the loop or for loop or while loop is not executing as expected. Telling you, well, the loop condition is not maybe written correctly. The loop is exiting early, for example. The loop is not actually being executed. Or maybe the loop variable is not being updated correctly. Okay, so these are various reasons. Another example, well, can you maybe identify any logic errors in my code? So I can just say that. So if I say, can you identify any logic error in my code? And he's going to tell you, well, it's difficult to identify the logic code, basically, in the because without seeing the code. But it's going to show you basically what are the key, I would say, logic errors that are available out there. These are off by one errors, or maybe incorrect conditionals, for example. Maybe there is division by zero that might cause some issues, or incorrect variable scope. Okay. Another, for example, question that you can ask ChatGPT is, well, can you maybe tell me what are the 10 common programming errors for maybe new Python programmers? So that basically can show you the 10 programming errors. And one of them is first syntax error, such as missing a colon at the end of a Python function, as an example. We have also indentation errors, and these are the first two errors that we actually encountered before. You also have name error. You're referencing a variable or a function, basically, that hasn't been defined before. You also have type error as well. Maybe you have, for example, infinite loops. You are stuck in an infinite loop that doesn't exit. You can also have maybe division by zero as well, or maybe incorrect file handling and inefficient code. Again, pretty amazing. So what I could do as well is I can say maybe, okay, what about maybe JavaScript, for example? So let's say I would like to know what issues are available in, let's say, JavaScript. Not anyone, certainly. One of them is syntax error, undefined variables, null or undefined errors, for example, here. also see infinite loops, division by zero. It's pretty much common as well across both languages. All right, next, let me show you a little bit of an advanced example. And basically here I have a Jupyter notebook that solves regression type problems in data science. And basically without going through all the details, I just want to give you from a very high level what that function, what that code does first. And I'm going to show you where I introduced an error. And I want to see if ChatGPT is able to detect that issue for us and even fix the code, which is, again, when I saw this, it was pretty much like mind-blowing for me. So for example, first, I'm going to import all our key libraries. These are Seaborn, Pandas, Matplotlib, NumPy. And then here we use Pandas to read our data, the CSV file, which is University Admission data. And then we explored all the different columns here. We checked out the shape as well. And then we confirmed if we have missing values in my data or not. Next, basically, I'm going to perform EDA, or exploratory data analysis and visualization. So here we're going to use plot histograms. And then afterwards, here I just plotted scatter plots to visualize the data. No issues, no problems here so far. And then what I've done here is simply I split the data into inputs and outputs. The inputs, we're going to call them X. The output, and that is going to be my target variable that I'm trying to predict, which is simply the chances of admission here, which is Y. And basically what I've done here is, as part of this practice opportunity, basically I generally ask students to split the data into training and testing. So here we are missing an actual part of the code, which is critical because I'm going to use the XTrain and XTest to train the model and test the model afterwards. So basically here, without this section, there is an issue here, there is an error or problem. There's a missing lines of code here that students need to fill. And basically here I have the XTrain. Here I'm basically using XGBoost regressive to train my model. And I need XTrain here to train my model, and then I need here to test the model with XTest, but I don't have that. What I've done is I simply copied that code here, okay, without, of course, a solution at the end. And I just came back and I just would like to see if ChatGPT was able to basically detect the error for us. And let's go ahead and copy the code. So here I'm going to say Control V. So this is, again, the exact same code that I've got here, okay, that I showed you in the Jupyter notebook. So here again, I'm reading my data, I'm checking it out. And the part here is I have X and Y, and I do not have XTrain and YTrain. I just went ahead and trained the model, assuming that I know XTrain and YTrain. But let's go ahead and test it out and see if it detected it. And here we go. The code is missing the definition of XTrain and XTest, and YTest variables as well. And assuming that these variables have been defined and split the data correctly, and here we go. What you see is, which is pretty, again, amazing. You will find that simply here, it also already detected that I need to perform train test split here to split my data, which is X and Y, to simply XTrain, XTest, YTrain, and YTest, which is, again, kind of mind-blowing for me, because right now you can simply use ChatGPT to detect error messages for you. You can also use it to fix the code as well.